Hey guys, turkey season is in full swing right now, and if you are planning on getting after it, make sure to pick up some Meat Eater Phelps turkey calls to stuff into the old turkey vest or into your fanny pack right now. I carry a few different things. I like to use mouth calls, and I like to use pot calls. Mouth calls or diaphragms, I like them because it gives you hand-free calling, meaning when you're working a bird up close, you can have your gun on your knee, finger on the trigger, ready to roll, and still be making turkey sounds. I like pot calls because I just like pot calls. I enjoy calling with a pot call. Whatever direction you go, including a box call, which I don't personally use too much, but they're fun and great, and I started out with them. Yanni, on the other hand, one of my main turkey hunting buddies, he loves box calls. And what's funny is I'll now and then look to him and give him the look that means get out your box call and find us a turkey. So it's not that I don't like him. I just have Yanni use his. Then I don't have to carry it. Go to Phelps Game Calls. Get calls that are made in the USA and get calls that'll get them close. Find yours at phelpsgamecalls.com today.
Hey, I'm KC.
And I'm Tyler.
And you're listening to
The Element Podcast.
What is happening, you woods people out there? Let me tell you, deer season is so close, and we are all so antsy that I've got antsies in my pantsies for going deer hunting right now. It is crazy. Tyler just told me we're 19 days. 19 days from leaving on a hunting trip, which is insane to me. It's absolutely crazy, but I'm stoked. We're going to an archery shop today just because we're excited, pretty much. Yeah. And we're here in a little bit. We're going to have Mark Olis on from Moultrie Mobile, to talk about cell cameras. I can't talk. So we're teaching our son how to talk, and what I do is instead of teaching him the right ways, I teach him the wrong ways. So sorry. Anyways, we're going to talk about cell cameras a ton. We've been using the Moultrie Deltas a lot and really, really like them. But we're going to talk about like how you'd actually use a cell camera in hunting scenarios and stuff like that. But before that, Tyler and I just have so much to talk about that we thought we would bore you for at least 12 to 15 minutes beforehand. Probably not, actually. We're going to do it a lot quicker than that. But, Tyler, I would like to know what your biggest concern heading to said location. We'll just go with that, right? We don't want to just send too many people to, the great state of Kentucky. Oh, that's not what I meant. Before, right? But like for this September hunt, what's your biggest concern?
Me. I'm big.
Oh, man.
My biggest concern is that I go back to Nebraska, work extremely hard in the 94-degree heat, and have one fleeting encounter with a decent buck or less, and get mad that I went and spent the money and time to do it again this year after I said I wouldn't do it last year.
I don't think you're going to have a big Sasquatch sticking his head up behind you too much this time. But I also think that I think you will kill a deer from a saddle this year in Nebraska.
I would love to do that.
I don't think you're going to shoot one from the ground. I might. But I think that we have a real good shot at hanging in a tree and killing a deer from a tree.
I'm all about it. I like the game plan, man. I like what you've kind of come up with for the game plan, and I think it's going to be a good one for us to employ. I think it's going to be I'm trying to think of the word, but like an exciting one. It's not going to be a boring game plan because it's going to change every 12 hours. I mean, like we're hunting a specific type of thing in the mornings and then a different specific type of thing in the evenings.
Yeah.
And then obviously things change whenever you start seeing animals.
Driving to different spots and doing a lot of observation stuff and kind of, I like these hunts where we get to go and collect data and observations and then make moves from that. That's a lot of fun to me. I don't how do I put this? We've been watching some videos from your Iowa hunt that I went with you on, kind of the earlier one, and that was the time of our lives. Don't get me wrong. However, that 3-day stint where we're just kind of like moving the stand a couple hundred yards each time, I don't like doing that. I would rather either just go in there and hunt or go to a different spot or whatever. And retrospectively, that was the thing to do because we were learning it. But I'm very much more like these times where we get to make big moves and see new types of food sources and oh, that's where they're at, or whatever. It's just exciting, like you're saying.
I kind of wonder if you didn't like it because we didn't kill a deer. It's like last year we would make these aggressive moves and then we would just kill one in an hour and a half sitting in the stand.
Yeah.
And it
Don't
was
take it wrong. I didn't dislike it by any means. That was a ton of fun.
Yeah.
But it would have been cool to actually kill that buck, and then I probably wouldn't even be able to say that at all.
Yeah. We almost did, man.
I know, and there was I truly was concerned that you not shooting that 3-year-old on the last evening was a mistake, and I'm glad it all ended up working out well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your Iowa buck was an awesome hunt, the deer you ended up killing and everything. So, but I remember when you passed, I was like,
yeah.
All right.
Tough pass,
It
man.
is. It was, but it worked out.
Tough decision.
Yeah. But one of the things that helps us a ton whenever we're trying to go out and make these moves and make these decisions beforehand and all this like we're doing in Nebraska is we do these Map Scout Challenge videos in the summer. You've probably seen them. We just launched a new one. Actually, it's in Sam Houston National Forest here in Texas, which I know a lot of y'all locals are excited because a ton of y'all probably hunt down there, have spent some time down there, and it's a tough place to hunt, I think. So kudos to you if you can go in there and have some success. But whenever you spend time going to these places and trying to ring every bit of deer sign and knowledge you can obtain from it, like we do these Map Scout videos, it really, really helps us in the fall. Mm-hmm. And you've talked about this a ton, and I think Sam Houston is no exception to that because when you're dealing with 140-pound deer, they don't leave a lot of sign on the ground or anywhere really. You have to to find a rub sometimes down there. You have to find wispies.
Yep.
It's really. I'm not going to pat myself on the back and say it's difficult, and we did it because we didn't go down there and kill anything, but we did go down there and find some plans of action. We found some deer sign. We found some ways that you could probably go in there and at least make moves on deer. So it's kind of cool.
Well, another thing is one thing that we've talked about, and there's probably some people listening. They're like, "Man, I hate those Map Scout challenges. They show these, they show spots, whatever." One thing that we've dealt with over the course of this is we don't go in super far on a Map Scout challenge because we're checking out different spots, and we only have one day or a half day on these things. So we're we're trying to bail in there, not too far, find out if it's a spot or not, and then get out and get it to another spot before the day's over with if we need to. And when I think about that, this is a place where it gets a ton of pressure, has a rifle season, long rifle season, and, one of the only places on public you can do that in Texas, just free and open and everything else. And I think that these deer, if you're going to find deer that are leaving sign, that are big enough to leave sign and, worth hunting for some guys, you're going to have to go pretty far in. Mm-hmm. And what we've tried not to do on the Map Scout Challenge is, we're not in the business of ruining anybody's spot. And I understand that there are spots that we've probably found, and I know we have because people have messaged us that we've shown their spots or whatever, but they're pretty much all within about a half mile of the road. Mm-hmm. So it's you know what? That stinks that we just happened upon your honey hole that's kind of overlooked or whatever maybe, but maybe it's not overlooked.
Yeah, it's
maybe
not
it's just a
overlooked if
good
we found
spot,
it. That's the other thing is if we could just look at a map and figure that out, that's something anybody can do, but I would say that overwhelmingly the response, I mean, even on the Sam Houston one, everybody's like, "Oh, I'll hunt down there. That's awesome. Yeah. I'm glad to see some people down here doing it." Yeah. We had a message today that was like, "Man, it's cool to see that y'all know, different plant types and stuff like that. It's interesting to think about it in that direction as opposed to well, where's the closest deer feeder on private from here or whatever, you know what I mean?" I'm kind of inferring some things there, but, I think that what you can learn from these, and you're exactly right, we try to not, highlight spots or whatever, but you can probably learn, like, okay, if I'm hunting that close to the road and it's easy for somebody to find my spot and show it to people, then I probably don't need to be there. Right?
Yeah. Or if it's a good spot and then you hunt it and find those spots or whatever. But the thing is, like, we're trying to at least find a way not to ruin people's spots that are working real hard to get a mile
That's
back
right.
in or something, So,
and usually it's real hot and we don't want to walk a mile back in the summertime. So.
Yes.
Because we will be the big sweaty hogs that you think those are actually hog wallows? No, those are K.C. and Tyler wallows right there that we found on the Mad Challenge.
I'm about to do a comparison test.
Yeah, tell the people.
All right. Tell me which, y'all comment somewhere and tell me which grunt you like the best.
I know my answer.
Okay, so the first one is the Grunt Wheeze by Primos. The second one is the Hardwood Grunter by Primos. These are two inexpensive grunt calls. KC bought me the second one recently, and I like the heck out of it. And it's got a lot more control. I got to take this, don't I?
Yeah.
Hey, Paul. Yes, sir. No, we're both righties. Cool. Okay, thank you, sir. Bye.
Just tell me a second.
So, do you have an exact spot for me to start, or should I just keep going?
Just go like you just named the calls.
Okay. So KC bought me this Primos Hardwood Grunter recently after having great success.
Oh, me?
Yes,
Yeah. Okay, I thought you were making a joke about it.
It would be a joke if it was about
No,
me.
you've had great success, but it's I would go out on a limb and say your great success was in spite of your grunt call last season.
Yeah. I don't think I've called a deer in the last 2 years. I called one in 19 that I missed.
Do you remember in 18 you had one worse than that? You had that little tiny thing.
Yeah.
That
Was that 18 or
it sounded
17?
like a kazoo or something
I feel
like
like I've
that.
had this since 18, but maybe not.
I don't know. You had that little small thing, and it did not make a good sound.
No, we had these in 18 because 18.
That's when I got chewed on.
Right, yeah. 18 was when it got chewed on. Or technically it got eaten in 18 or 19. One or the other, but
I missed the deer that morning, chased him that evening, and chased him to this certain spot. And then Tyler and I went back in the spring, found his bone pile. He got killed or died or something, and found my grunt call, and the coyotes had eaten the deer and my grunt call. We did not get a...
Dude, how did you find your grunt call?
Know.
It was a
weird.
straight up pasture.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. But anyways, apparently some people say these are pieces of Chinese junk. I would venture to say that there is no grunt call in the world made that's probably doesn't have a component from China, so we can probably get over it. But I like Will Primos, so I'm glad to mess with those
And this
calls.
one's got a little snort wheeze on it, and it's got a place for my duct tape.
There you go.
I don't mind it. It's to me it doesn't have quite the same tone as the hardwood grunter.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound quite as good, but
there's more touch to the hardwood grunter, and
it's deep.
The wood just feels good, man. I've always liked wood duck calls too.
Yeah, me too.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't really had a lot of them though because the good ones are typically a little more expensive.
I don't buy the good ones. I buy the cheap ones.
All mine are cheap too, but I always wanted a nice one.
Yeah.
I used to like them. I used to want one of them rich and tones real bad, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway,
that's a rich and tone deer call right there. And we're going to be
right.
grunting in some deer. I proved last year that you can grunt in a buck in early October in South Dakota. We'll see if you can do it in September in Nebraska. I don't know. I hope we don't have to.
Our good friend Tony thinks so.
Really?
I've talked to him about it, yeah.
Yeah, we need to holler at him and see. I always like to talk to him about this time of year. Get a little hype, you know what I'm saying?
He probably won't answer. He'll be like, I know exactly what these boys want to talk about.
Hey, where should we go? Anyways, instead, why don't we holler at Mark Olis and talk a little bit about cell cameras and just see if maybe we should use some of them cell cameras. We've been using some of them actually on some of the Map Scout Challenge stuff. We have actually some really big bucks. in a big buck, high pressure, hardest to hunt state ever.
Hardest.
That's right.
Hardest.
So let's get Mark on the phone. Today on the phone we have got Mark Olis with Moultrie Mobile. Mark is a fellow Southerner, and it is good to talk to folks like that. Not that I don't appreciate my northern brethren, but, man, it is nice to talk to Mark on the phone. Mark, what's happening, man?
Hey, guys. Well, appreciate you having me on, and, like all Southerners, just trying to beat the heat right now.
Yeah, for real.
I guarantee you, man. We were talking on the phone before we got on here about working out and fitness and stuff. And as the summer pushes on, I push myself further and further, not to work out harder, but to just get up earlier to work out because pretty much after about 8:30 or so around here, it gets about near intolerable to be outside doing much, So, and then
Absolutely.
I do construction part time, and so anytime I'm doing that stuff, it's pretty much just a sweat fest. So,
I did 13 step ups this morning, and I was sweating. I said, "All right, I'm out. We'll see y'all later."
Yeah, man, it's the hot time of year. This is what is I think affectionately known as the dog days of summer. But actually. Yeah. At least for us, this summer has been about as mild as I can remember.
Yeah, me too.
Yep. I don't know if it's kind of you're down kind of in that Gulf Coast stuff, right?
Yeah, so we're the Moultrie Mobile. We're based out of Birmingham, Alabama. So yeah, we're right here in Central Alabama, and we've been very much like what you guys are saying. This has been a very wet summer, and it's been very mild. It's really just now that the heat's really starting to crank up, and it really feels like August in Alabama now. But yeah, other than that, it has been a pretty enjoyable summer. I mean, heck, the grass has been green and, everything like that. So I think the deer have probably stayed well fed on native browse and things like that this summer.
Yep. That's exactly what I was thinking about, man. I'm interested to see how this correlates because through my teens and early 20s, even, it was terrible drought around at least where we're at. And I'm sure y'all experienced the same things, in the last 10 or 15 years or whatever. But the last year or 2, 3, we've had a decent amount of rain. It's spotty or whatever, and you can always say we're in a drought here in Texas or, in the South or whatever. But I'm very interested to see if there truly is a correlation in health and antler growth this year because we have such good browse. Just things didn't burn up yet, at least.
That's right.
Things can happen in 2 weeks around where we live, though. Like you just never.
Yeah.
You get 2 weeks, 105 and no rain, and it can go from green to brown real quick. But
it's like same here. Absolutely.
I am interested to see if things are just everything looks real healthy this year, and I hope so because that would be a lot of fun to just go out there and hunt some healthy deer.
Right. Well, and I'll say one thing that I've noticed, and it's just kind of one of the cool things about cellular trail cameras is I've still got cameras out on food plots. Now, we didn't plant them this summer in soybeans or stuff like that, but because we take care of that soil and the soil health and we keep it limed and fertilized, all those native plants that sprung up after, the oats and all dried out from the spring, we have had lots of deer in our food plots eating all that native browse as it's growing up. And that's one thing I've noticed on these years where we get plenty of rain, just not even planting that food plot, but having all that native vegetation come up. Those deer still are coming to those plots and filling them up in the evenings and eating because those plants are still more palatable than the ones growing over on the side of the road or out in the pine thicket or whatever, because we're managing that soil. So I've seen a lot of deer on cell cameras out in those food plots just eating that native vegetation this summer.
As we were discussing, season is getting real close, and you better have your stuff dialed in. And right now, you can go over to Vector Custom Shop and order you some arrows because they will get to you quick, handmade, custom, high-quality arrows that are perfect to the specs of your bow, okay? Like, it is super pertinent that you don't just go buy something out of that PVC tube at Walmart and put it on your bow. You got to have the right spined arrows. You got to have the right weighted points. You got to have it all right. And Vector has got it down to a T on how to build arrows that fit your system. So go check out VectorCustomShop.com. It's wild how, like, soil disturbance is really the key to that. I didn't plant any food plots this year. I don't usually. I have some work to do on my private property. I'm kind of a new property owner too, so that's in the future. But I do garden, and I planted some watermelon, like about, I don't know, a quarter-acre watermelons that the deer destroyed because they always do that. They're mean. But all the bloodweed and different forbs that popped up out of that watermelon patch, that's where the deer end up. Even though like it almost looks exactly the same right out of that, but the deer still want to go out there and eat that, the new growth, the stuff that happened from this year. And I'm assuming probably possibly more nutritious because I have fertilized that area some, and it's just it's just cool to see how like we can put a ton of work into this stuff, but like if you go back to some old what's the I can't remember the phrase, but it's cow, plow, axe, fire, and something. I don't you know what I'm talking about, the land management stuff. You go back to that old stuff and it still works, and it's cool to see. So why are you monitoring these summer plots like that with cell cams right now?
Well, I'd like to say that because I'm such an awesome hunter and I really monitor it 365 days a year and all this good stuff. I'd like to say that, but I mean it's just honestly because those cameras are still running from turkey season, and so I'm able to have eyes in those fields, and that's what's cool is those cameras are still sending me images, and I get to see what's going on. Even in this time of year where, a lot of deer hunters, it's kind of the off season, they're not out there as much. They're not really seeing and monitoring what's going on. But because I still have those cell cams running, and especially ones where I've got like a solar battery box or something where it's still powering that camera. I mean, I'm able to see all that stuff. So it's not because I'm really, have done it on purpose, but it's because it's still there, still working, still running. And I'm able to benefit and see those animals. And then, as the summer progresses, start to see that antler growth and all that stuff. And it kind of gets you fired up and it helps you just remember like, hey, those animals are still out there. They're still growing. They're doing their thing. And, it's just pretty cool to see that through the summer.
Yeah, absolutely. So you talked about battery life there, which for anybody who is an avid trail camera person, batteries are just like, it's gold, whether it's you're trying to figure out a solar system for them that's funny, system of solar power or, lithium versus alkaline, all this stuff. But with cell cameras, especially, it's an issue because you're dealing with uploads, right, and pinging off of satellites and all that kind of stuff. And we've actually kind of seen this a little bit. We've got a couple cameras out across the country right now, monitoring public land in different states. But we also have done a little experiment here behind Tyler's house with some flavored corn. It's going to be, kind of hush-hush deal. We can't give everybody the secrets yet, but some of them we have, set on upload intervals, and that one on the corn we set on, on demand, or what's it called when it just sends it as soon as it takes a picture?
So on our system, I believe it's just called immediate. Mm-hmm. So it takes an image and then uploads it, right after it takes it. Gotcha.
Yeah. So it's immediate, and I could tell like a ridiculous difference in how much that ran the battery down. And of course that's going to depend on frequency of deer appearing, but in front of a feed pile, of course it's going to be, just a rager, right? But, since you've ran these things for a while and you apparently have cameras that the batteries are still good in since turkey season, what do you feel like is kind of the appropriate setting to kind of like balance getting data at a decent click, but also not using too much battery life?
No, and honestly, of all the things we probably talk about this morning, that that is probably the most important thing that we can hit on.
I'm glad we live with that. That way the rest of the podcast is not as good.
No, but you have hit on the topic, right? Because let's face it, when you set that cellular camera up in the woods, you just want it to work. You really don't care how it does it. What kind of voodoo magic's going on. You just want it to work. You want it to send you the images so you can check them out. And that's what we all want. And so the biggest thing, and it's especially with guys that are just getting into cell cams for the first time, they're new to it. Let's face it, it's addictive to get those images. You're sitting there saying, I want to get it. I want it right away. And you start seeing those images, and it kind of starts programming you to hit that app on your phone all the time just to check them out. And while it's cool, while it's great to see that, there's really, especially this time of year, what benefit do you get from running immediate? There really is no benefit. And like you said, like you guys noticed, when you have that on immediate, you're asking that camera to do a lot of things that use power on that immediate mode. So there's the actual taking of the picture. And that's not terrible. That's not a big battery drain in and of itself. If it's a night image, it's using flash. So, you're going to need power for that. But the biggest thing drawing on those batteries is when that camera is connecting to the server. So that whole process of connecting with the server and uploading that image, whether it's, even if it's one image, it's using quite a bit of battery power to do that. So what I always recommend to guys is so my cameras that are still running, the reason I still got battery life going is I got those cameras set to upload twice a day. So, every 12 hours, whatever interval it's on, you don't really pick the time. It's kind of baked in, but you can pick, how often. So I recommend guys say, twice a day, even once a day is fine. And when it uploads and connects with that server, if it's sending one image or 10 images or 20 images, it's still using less power less often when it has to connect to that server. Because again, connecting with that server is the big draw. So it's better to send multiple images a couple times a day than it is to have that thing sending an image every time it takes it. And doing that alone will tremendously increase your battery life. But there are a few more things that will help a lot. Some of these cameras I have were during the deer season are on feeders. So obviously you get a lot of activity on those feeders and you get a lot of does, things like that coming in. I'll usually set a detection delay, especially on a feeder where it's a lot of does. I'll set that to 5 minutes. So that camera is only snapping a photo every 5 minutes instead of sitting there just every 10 seconds, 20 seconds, snapping images. And again, you're going to get a lot of deer come out at night. So now you're burning that flash and using more power. And then another thing I recommend is if you don't care, you don't need it, using video mode is another power consumption. It really utilizes the battery drain. So I tell guys, if you're just wanting intel to see what the deer, what deer are out there, when are they coming out, set that to photo only, have it upload 1 to 2 times a day. And even putting that image on a lower resolution, that even helps out too, because it's not taking as long to write that bigger file. So, that's another aspect. So I like to use the detection delay, put it on photo and have it upload 1 to 2 times a day. And I'm telling you, guys would be blown away at how much longer their batteries last if they'll do that.
Yeah. I got a couple of questions in regards to the solar panel stuff. Do you guys sell a solar panel?
We do. We do. So, and that's the other thing that I do recommend to guys is if you're running a cell camera and you're going to have it in an area where it can get direct sunlight for, we say if you can get 4 to 5 hours of direct sunlight a day, that's typically good enough. The more you get, the better. But if so, we have a solar battery box. It's got a 12-volt battery inside the box, and it's got a solar panel on top and one on the side. So if you set that in the direct sunlight, it will power that camera for an amazingly long time. I mean, essentially, you don't have to go out there and mess with it. Now, we always recommend that, we get a lot of questions like, well, if I'm running a solar battery box, do I need to also run AA batteries? And we always recommend that they do run the AA's as well, because those will act as a backup. So, in case you have a number of cloudy days, maybe a couple weeks of clouds, that's going to reduce the amount of solar energy you're getting put back into that battery. So we do always recommend run the AA's with it, but that will adding that solar option is a huge deal. That camera, you can essentially run that camera without going out there, especially if it's getting a good 4 to 6 hours or more of direct sunlight a day.
Mm-hmm. So, if you were to buy like a third-party solar charger that is it's just the solar panel and it's got like a little auxiliary cable that plugs into that port on the bottom, is that going to, like, how much battery life are you going to get out of that running that? I mean, if you get normal, like you say, 4 to 6 hours of sun, are you going to be able to run that off the same, 12 AA batteries for an entire year, or how does that look?
Well, so me personally, I've just started testing in January. That's when we had the dual panel solar battery box come out. And so I wanted to run it because it's a new product. So obviously I hadn't been able to test it, do anything like that. And I put that in one of our food plots where I had a regular Moultrie trail camera with one of our modems hooked to it, so it would send cellularly. So I had two devices, the modem and the camera running on, those each run on 8 AA batteries. So I had two devices, and I had we call it a Y splitter cable, and I could plug that Y splitter into the cable coming off of the battery box and plug one of those into the camera and one of those into the modem. And I've had that running since, I think, middle January of this year, and that camera is still sending me photos now. So how long will it last? I don't know, but it's been running from January, and I'm still getting images sent to me, and it's still showing 100% battery life on both the camera and the modem, which that just blows my mind. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's truly awesome. Now, I will say this. It's in a field. I've got that battery box out in the field. That thing is getting full sunlight all day long. Right. So it's not hurting for sunlight, but it is still at full power.
Yeah. Have you tested any that are like in the woods?
I haven't, and that's one thing I gotta do some more of. Once you get into the woods and you really start getting that shade cover, it's going to affect that solar capability. I mean, quite a bit. So, you have to get the direct sunlight on it. But that was one of the reasons that they put the two solar panels on that battery box, is even in an environment where it's getting some shade, the two panels is going to draw more power than just one panel. So they did it for that reason. But personally, I haven't been able to test that yet.
How long is the cord on that sucker? Could you run it up to the top of the tree and stick it up there?
Let's see. On that solar battery box, I think that's a 10-foot cord on that one. So it's pretty long, but as far as running it to the top, no, but you can run it, a solid 10 foot from the camera, and it comes with a heavy duty strap. So you can actually affix that battery box to a tree, and you could get it up higher, even take a ladder or something out there. If the sunlight's hitting up higher, you could set that to where it will get that sunlight, even if maybe the camera itself is not in the sunlight.
So you could use a ladder, or you could take a couple of sticks in there and put on your cruiser saddle and hop up in that tree. That's what we're going to use this year. The cruiser is the most comfortable saddle that we have put on. And one thing I like using saddles for is not just getting into small little locations in tiny trees and hunting big deer out of them, but also going up clearing lanes. It's just easy to put the saddle on real quick. You can safely get up clear shooting lanes on private property, and you can also hang trail cameras and stuff like that on public land in a safe manner. So the saddle has a lot of different functions that you can use this thing for, and we're using the Cruiser XCs this year, me and KC are. If you're interested in checking out the Cruiser, go check out Cruiser. That's CRUZR.shop.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm always thinking about crazy things that you could do, and then I never follow through with them. I just kind of, because I'm always, because honestly, getting more cameras out is, to me, ends up being more important than, sitting around trying to fiddle with the one to make it perfect or whatever, which there is a level of perfection you have to achieve when it comes to setting up a camera. But at the same time, trying to make the battery thing last every bit you can or whatever.
But if you were for me, on my property, it would be important for me to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you're the guy that's hunting, 60 acres, it's probably pretty important to get your cameras right. Mm-hmm. We just hunt so many places. There's not many guys that hunt as many places as we do. So it's a little different for us.
Getting the camera in the right place, when you're running on public land a lot, matters a whole lot more. Hanging it at the right height and all that stuff matters a ton. And then that's why we kind of talked about battery stuff at the beginning, because, if you have a cell camera on your property, you're monitoring it all on the app on your phone, battery's getting low, run back there and change it. Mm-hmm. You got a camera that's in Michigan and you're in Texas like we do right now, you got to have that thing, at least somewhat decently set up.
Yeah, it's
However, it's been pretty cool, man, because the Moultrie Mobile app is kind of the integral part of this whole thing, right? These Delta cameras are good, that they function well and take good pictures, but the fact that you can go in and on the app and just change all your settings up at any point in time you need to and monitor all the battery stuff is pretty important. And I think that's probably something to touch on where you're talking about setting it up for, twice a day uploads and stuff like that. You can go in and manipulate that stuff at any point in time on the app.
Absolutely. And that's what I tell folks is, the cameras are cool. Don't get me wrong. The camera itself, that's a piece of hardware. That's neat. It takes images, it sends it. But once those images get loaded to the server and they're then on the app, that's where the whole Moultrie Mobile system comes alive. And that's where, you can really start doing some serious scouting and, beyond just looking at the images themselves. There's so many features built into that app that, that are free. So that's one thing is, with Moultrie Mobile, obviously you got to buy the camera. Then you have to, for it to send you images, you have to pay a monthly subscription, which there's unlimited, there's ones that have fewer images. So there's different price points. You can pick the one you're comfortable with. And, but the app itself is free. Whether or not your camera is active, so whether you're paying a monthly fee, all the features that are in the app are still available to you. And say you run your camera, September through January, the hunting season months, and then, you cancel it because it's I'm done hunting. I don't need to be paying for the monthly fee. All your images are stored on there. So as long as you don't delete them, Moultrie Mobile never deletes them. So I've been on the Moultrie Mobile system since 2016, and that's before I was with the company and everything. And I don't ever delete my images. So I've got data going back to 2016 on, different bucks and things like that. And, I can still go back and use all the features of the app, even though I'm not paying a monthly subscription fee. So it's not like once you cancel or something like that those are blocked out from you. You still have full use of it. You still have full access to your images. So you can still, work on scouting and doing things, planning for the next season based off of your last year's images and data and things like that.
Well, legitimately, how much data are you giving us? Like, can we have 200 gigs of stuff on there?
Oh gosh, I mean, I don't even know. Like,
that's cool.
I mean, like we have people so much smarter than me that work at Moultrie Mobile that they could tell you all this and probably confuse you in the process. But I mean, I'm talking about app engineers and software engineers. I mean, brilliant people that I actually really enjoy talking to, because I mean, it just blows my mind, the stuff they're telling me, and it's just so cool. But I can't even answer that because I just don't know. I don't know. I mean, like I said, I've never deleted an image, and I go back to 2016, and now I think I'm running 8 cell cameras now during the season, so I have a ton of images on there.
That's got to be so expensive for Moultrie, man. I'm like, golly, man, there's no telling
data
how much.
is pretty much cryptocurrency nowadays,
For real.
Like, it's like that is king when it comes to storage and all that kind of stuff. But that's pretty cool feature, man, for sure. How are you organizing your stuff, like going back to 2016 and stuff? We're pretty new with the app and like it, but it's just kind of like a feed of pictures at this point in time. How do you keep all that stuff in order?
So that's what's neat about the app, is it really does it for you. So it just depends on, what is it you're looking for. So the app has what we call filters. And I mean, I don't even know how many of them there are, but you can filter down to individual cameras. You can filter down to time of day. You can do searches for moon phases, temperature, date range, barometric pressure. And the other thing on the app is something we call smart tags. And that's the AI technology that's built in. So every time an image is taken and uploaded to the server, the Moultrie Mobile system automatically scans that images for different animals. So you can search for bucks, you can search for does, turkey. It even searches if a person shows up on the camera or a vehicle. So, you can use it as a security camera as well and get notifications. So if a person or a vehicle shows up on a camera, you can have that where when that uploads, you can get a notification directly to your phone to alert you, hey, there's not supposed to be anybody out there. Why in the world are they out there? So it allows you that security aspect, but so you can search for that. And then one of the it just came out this summer. It's called activity charting. And this is the thing that I'm super pumped about, is in activity charting, you can go in and you can look at individual cameras. You can look at all your cameras at once. And you get readouts, and all this data is automatically inputted. So you'll get it's like pie charts that shows when the deer are moving based on the time of day, the temperature range, and the moon phases. So those are all each individual pie and graph charts that will show you, and you can select time ranges. So say you're going hunting this weekend, and you, at a glance, you'd like to see, man, when are the deer moving this week? And you can go on there, put in the date range for, say, Monday through Friday, and it'll give you that pie chart or graph readout and say, hey, and show you at a quick glance, hey, the deer are moving, they're moving more between like 8 and 10 a.m. this week. So I know we need to be hunting in the morning, or maybe it's in the evening or the middle of the day, or maybe it's a good split, and you can hunt morning and evening, things like that. But it'll give you that breakdown automatically. And again, that's just another free feature inside the app. And anyone that's been on Moultrie Mobile for any length of time, our engineers have backlogged that for 2 years. So you can go back for 2 years of your data, and if you still got those images on there, you can go and even look up trends. So say you kind of wanted to look at, like, hey, when did the rut really start kicking off? When did bucks start really cruising? Well, you could get on that activity charting, click on bucks, and then look at those cameras and see when those bucks were moving. And, say you got maybe you're thinking about honing in on a stand, a specific stand you want to hunt. It's like, man, I know this one buck's over there. I'd really like to see the activity going on. You can click on that buck and then see for that particular camera, hey, the bucks have really been moving, really good in the mornings over here, or something like that. So those are just like those advanced scouting tools built into the app. And, I could sit here and kind of go on all day about it, but the biggest thing is just get in there and utilize it. And one thing for anybody out there that has not used Moultrie Mobile, they don't have a Moultrie Mobile camera, you can actually go play with all this stuff for free. So if you download the Moultrie Mobile app to your phone, it's free. There's no charge. You would just set up a email and password to get in. And there's a demo model. When you download that app, you can scroll down and it says demo. Click on that demo and you can use all of these features. And we actually have cameras that are out in the woods. So they're taking pictures of deer and turkey and things like that. And you can actually get a feel for how that app's going to work. And long before you even purchase a camera or a plan or anything, you can test all this out free of charge.
Dude, the app is so cool, man. Like, I was just, while you were talking, I was scrolling through and I was like, which of course I'm extra excited right now because I went to our Michigan camera and then filtered bucks.
Ooh.
And there's a really big buck on the camera we hung in Michigan, which we're actually going to release a Map Scout Challenge video from that and show exactly where that buck was and everything. So I'm sure there'll be some people hunting there this year. But,
oh man.
Yeah, but it's a nice buck, man, and it's really cool, man, how that buck filter works. Because I was also looking at our Ohio camera as well, and it blew my mind. But like the first picture that I looked at was bucks in Ohio, and there's like a spike coming through at a pretty good clip, and he's like kind of blurry a little bit because he's moving so fast, and his head's like bobbing, while he's moving, and like I had to like really look to make sure it wasn't a doe, and I was like, I can't believe that the technology can pick up on that so well, like how that's a buck. I mean, it's barely bigger than his ears, So speaking of Michigan, one of the cool things that we have used this year on X is actually the crop data layers. Shows you kind of what crop was planted in 2020. So one thing we've been looking at a lot in the upper Midwest is the alfalfa layer, which is kind of a light green. And that helped us in Michigan to find a place to put this camera. It also helped us in Ohio as well, where we've seen turkeys and big old velvet bucks using these cameras next to alfalfa fields now that we've got these cell cameras up. So if you're interested in checking out the crop data layers and you don't have OnX, you can go check out onxmaps.com.
Yeah, right. It's true. And the thing about that AI technology is the more it's used, the smarter it gets. So it's only getting better. And now,
creepy.
That's scary.
Right.
Hide your kids, hide your wife.
But you can, if you did see an image and say it was wrong, there's a little option at the bottom of that image where it asks, is smart tag correct? And you can click no, and that helps train the system. So if you ever did see an image where it was incorrect, you can click that no to help train the system.
That's cool, man. Let's
talk about hunting, man. So
yeah.
Well, real quick.
Okay.
While we're talking about battery life and the cell cam and the whole thing. So like looking at some of the lower battery pictures, and I know that we talked about this earlier. It looks like the lower the battery gets, that there is a like the pictures get a little bit darker at night. I don't know if you guys have probably had some people write in about that, but like, is that just something that is going to happen? Is it something that you can you guys are working to fix? Is that a fixable thing? Or, is that just something where like it's really important to do less uploads, obviously or less frequent uploads so that, obviously you can take advantage of the most nighttime photos?
Again, I can't stress enough how important it is to, just train yourself to set that to 1 or 2 uploads a day, just because it makes such a huge difference on battery life. But once those batteries do get low, and it's usually pretty low, you will see a reduction in the IR flash, but that's the same as like on a regular trail camera too. When that battery gets low, you'll notice that the flash isn't as bright, because the flash is a big power consumer and it needs that power to really work. But on some of the images, some of the dark images, we've launched a couple firmware updates, and that's another thing I'll say about the Moultrie cell cams is they will actually get better over time because of firmware updates. And the cool thing is those actually happen automatically. So they're sent cellularly. You don't have to go to your camera. You don't have to do anything. That camera will receive, if our engineers launch a new firmware to enhance or fix something, that happens automatically. And then all of a sudden you'll see a difference in the camera. And
that's cool.
We've done that on the new Delta camera a couple times already, just with some, color correction. The images got better looking, crisper. And one of the new firmware updates is actually going to help attack some of those darker images that you've noticed. So those should get better here soon with the release of the next firmware update.
Yeah, I will say the like ones that are with full battery power are like bright.
Oh yeah,
bright. They look good at night, dude.
We've already launched a couple videos that had some Moultrie stuff in it and some social media posts, and of course trail cameras are like, people love talking about trail cameras and broadheads. That's like, and bows. People love talking about that stuff. And I've seen it a little bit, and it's just like what you were saying before. Like, I think we were off air, but a lot of people have a great time with them, and I think this is the world of trail cameras. You're going to have lovers and haters, and but one of the common things that people bring up, and I've seen it a little bit, is like a whiteout photo.
Yes.
Where it's like overexposed or something else is going on. Is that a firmware fix, or why is that happening? Is it something we can prevent, or is it something on the Moultrie end?
Sure. No. So on those whiteout specific photos, that was an issue early on in the Delta. And again, it wasn't every camera, but it turned out being an environmental condition. So, if cameras were in a heavily shaded area, and you got to those early and late periods where the sun's just coming up, so you've got some ambient light in the sky, the IR filter, infrared filter, was not transitioning as smoothly. So what you would have, it would still be on, like, say, a night setting, but you had a combination of the flash going off, and you had that ambient light at dawn and dusk. Mm-hmm. So it was whiting out images, and they launched a firmware update very early on that, and that's pretty much has gone away because of that firmware update.
Yeah, I don't think we've had one in a while. I think in Ohio we had one kind of early on or something, but it's not.
That's right.
Yeah, it's not like a problem that keeps rearing its head or whatever. It's just something that's seen.
And that was a prime example of where a firmware update was automatically sent. You didn't have to do a thing, and then the camera's performance was enhanced after that.
Yeah, that's pretty slick, man. What I do want to talk about hunting. That's what I want to talk about. But I got another question about trail camera stuff, and we'll continue on. But so you were talking about image quality, and the kind of the bearing for that is megapixel in some sense. Whenever you select whatever megapixel photo you want, on the app, I'm assuming it takes that photo, and then you have to request a high resolution image. Is that when you're getting your 20 megapixel image when you request that, or like how does that all work together?
Sure. No, that's a great question, and you're right. So when you get your regular thumbnail images sent to the app, those are in a lower resolution. They're a compressed image, and that's purely to save on data. Mm-hmm. Because you don't want to, if you're sending every single image high res, well, then you're really going to burn through that data. So yes, the thumbnail images that you get, those are a lower resolution. And then just like you said, so whatever you have it set to in your app for your resolution, when you request the high res image, that is, once it checks back in, it will then upload that higher resolution image. So if you had it on, enhanced or 20 megapixel or whatever, that's when it's going to put that, that's when you would get that image. So, and that image will show up in the spot where that thumbnail image is positioned. So, say it was an image from yesterday and where it's at in the gallery, that's exactly where your high res image will end up. Same with a video. If you upload a video, you would just go back to that same spot in the gallery where you had that image, and that's where your video will be, or your high res image. And one thing, while we're talking about that we recommend is when you do get an image that you want to get a high res or the video, we recommend just selecting one at a time, just to allow the system to deliver that image. When you do that, you don't run into any issues. Like sometimes there can be some issues, like if you select like 10 images at once to upload high res, you can run into some problems where those images have trouble, getting delivered, or if you select a number of videos or something. So if you do see one, we say, go ahead, we recommend select it, let that one load. And then when you see another one, select it, let it load.
Yeah. That sounds like a kind of the way we've been doing it too. It's just, you don't have to have every picture of that big buck in high res, but it's nice to have that one and be like, hey bud, look at this, look what I got on camera. So,
they look pretty good in low res.
They
still
do.
too.
I think so too. Yeah, especially when they're in velvet, they're already kind of fuzzy anyway. So
That's right. No,
yeah.
But you're absolutely right. It can make a difference if say that buck is kind of in the shadows or something, and it's not as illuminated as well. That high res image can make a difference when you zoom in to really see what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually did that in Ohio. We had a bachelor group come through, and it's one of those places when this is kind of it's difficult to hang a camera in a spot that has great exposure, and you end up with these hot spots where like sun's getting through the trees, and it's just something it's almost too much to ask a camera to do.
Camera guy too. Sometimes.
Yeah, exactly, for sure. But we have a camera in that kind of spot where there's like some sun that gets through to the forest floor, and then there's places where it's in the shade, and that deer was in the shade, and I did exactly what you're talking about. You hit the high res, wait on that thing to come in, and then you can zoom in and tell what it is. So it's pretty cool. Okay, let's talk about cell cameras and hunting. Okay, because that's what we're all actually trying to do. I've noticed this thing, man. You've probably seen it on social media too. But this time of year, people just get antsy. And they start asking like ridiculous questions on Facebook forums and all the, it's just like, everybody's like, well, I got my broadhead to 175 sharpness or what, it's like, dude, you just need to shoot a deer, So let's talk about that good stuff, because we're all trying to get to that, right? And these cameras are a lot of fun for scouting during the summer, and they work really great for that. But I want to talk about how we use cell cameras during the hunting season. And I think that up front, well, let's say this. There's hardly going to be anybody from the non-hunting community listen to this podcast. So we don't really have to do a whole lot of apologizing or, like justifying anything we do too much. But at the same time, we probably do need to have a little bit of a discussion about, what is an ethical use of a cell camera. And I don't think we have to spend a ton of time on it, right? But like, to me, the quickest way for us to get these things outlawed is for you to set it on instant and like hang out in your house until you see it ping a big deer and then shoot them from your window. You know what I mean? It's just not really, I'm sure that's not what y'all are designing cell cameras for, right? So like, what's the idea behind using a cell camera during hunting season?
No, that is a good question. And that is something that we take serious, because I'm sure you guys have seen, states like Arizona, they've on public land, they've outlawed the use of regular trail cameras now. So not just cellular cameras. So yeah, we don't want to do anything that's unethical or promote any kind of activities like that. And that's something that, as far as for Moultrie Mobile, you'll never see us talking about, using your cameras in a way to alter your movement in real time to hunt an animal using that camera. Mm-hmm. And that's not, we don't make them for that. That's not what we're interested in. The cell cam is the biggest thing it does for you during the hunting season is it gives you that up to minute intel. So, and whether that's 1 day, 2 days, just that week, you can see those images and say, I've got a family, I've got work and all that. So I'm a big weekend warrior hunter. I might get, Friday evening through Sunday to go hunting. These cell cams allow me to monitor activity throughout the week and see what those deer are doing, whether, it kind of helps you build a pattern. Whereas, without the cell cam, you're going to show up to hunt camp on Friday night. And then, you're going to head out somewhere on Saturday morning, blind into the dark because you don't have the intel. You probably didn't go ride around and pull your cameras because, one, that's going to cause a lot of disturbance on the property. And, on the particular property that myself and some family members and friends we hunt, we're very cautious about putting pressure on those animals. So, we do have to run in certain areas like we hunt in some pretty rugged terrain. So down in the bottoms, we just don't get cellular coverage. And that's the thing. To run a cell camera, you really want a good, strong signal because your camera's going to function the best. It's going to use batteries more efficiently that way. And so there are areas that we can't even run those cell cams. And so those cameras, we'll check them, but we'll wait till, say, after the morning hunt on Sunday. We're probably heading home that evening. We'll go midday Sunday and pull those cards and maybe go check the feeders, see if we need to fill any or anything like that. But the cell camera gives you the intel that you can use for that hunt that's coming up. And, we're all busy. And so that's a big deal to have that intel at your disposal during the week, and you can formulate a plan and hope to capitalize and be in an area that's going to give you more success on Saturday or Saturday evening, something like that.
Yeah, I think I like that. That's a big point you made there too, is that you're not making intrusion as well. And for me, busyness, of course, is an issue. I mean, I think a cell camera is the millennials' dream trail camera, right? It
just helps it helps you to, I mean, I think it's going to promote hunting, right? Because there's a lot of guys out there that I know that are going to be like, man, I should be working. But you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if there's a big deer on my property or not. Mm-hmm. Like, is it, I mean, I hate to make it turn into this, but this is just the fact of the matter that dudes are going to go, man, my wife's going to yell at me if I go sit in that stand for the next, 4 hours. And so I'd rather not deal with it because I don't even know what's using that, corn power right now or whatever. Yeah. So it's kind of like if there is a big deer there, it kind of helps you to use your time wisely if you're that kind of guy that needs a little more permission than most of us do.
And then for like the public hunter, you don't have to go in on October 28th and, put a bunch of scent and sound and human sign in there just to see what's on. Cause
and that's our issue.
That's our thing
in Texas is like, there's not this is where the Midwest varies from Texas is like, you can almost think that in a lot of places, especially, like I heard a buddy say one time that in Iowa there's a shooter on every piece of public. You know what I mean? But like in Texas, you go in on 200 acres, there may not be a shooter in that area that day. So, you know, maybe you should hunt a different 200 or 600 acres or whatever where there is one. And instead of having to go in and check every single one of these things, like you said, you get off work on Friday evening, you don't have time to go check all these things.
How many times have we used a whole day to go check cameras on public? You know what I mean? Because you have to go in with 12 SD cards and swap them all out.
3/4 of a mile.
Yeah, have 6 pounds of batteries in your pack. You know, like it's pretty time consuming, man. So it's pretty handy. Mark, I'd like to do this. Let's kind of work through a typical deer season and talk about maybe the use of a cell camera within the season. So, you know, depending on where you're at in the country, you're going to have, different months that mean different things. You know, if you're in Iowa, early November means a whole lot more than maybe in Alabama.
Yep.
Right? Because, I mean, I don't know really what the rut is where you're at, but I'm thinking it's probably mid-December is more when y'all are kind of doing the rut stuff. Is that right?
It's actually, for the majority of the state, it's more into that mid to late January, even into February.
Wow.
Time.
I didn't realize it was that late.
We have a very late rut here. And now there are pockets where deer were brought in from Michigan and places, you know, decades ago, and they do have a more traditional rut, but those are small zones.
Yeah, sure. Well, because of that, and to make this more relative for everyone, let's just talk about kind of 3 different parts of deer season, where you have early season, and then you have rut times, and then you have late season or post-rut, whatever you want to call it. So, in your opinion, how are you going to use a cell camera in kind of that early season, that pre-rut stuff? And, you know, where are you looking to hang a cell camera, and what kind of information are you trying to get?
So I'll use our property that we hunt. It's in East Central Alabama. It's about 550 acres. There's just a few of us on it. And we do I think we're going into our 9th season on this place. And from the onset, we said, hey, let's create something special. Let's shoot mature bucks, or let's at least not shoot the young bucks. Let them reach maturity. If we don't get one, that's fine. You know, that's no big deal. Let's shoot our does. Let's improve our habitat. Let's plant good food, and you know, we do prescribed fires and things like that. We've had some of it timbered. And so, you know, we've worked to make the hunting good. And again, the pressure is the big thing. We just want to keep the pressure off. So when we go, we do see deer. And so when we go in there, the early season, so our archery season here doesn't even open till October 15th. So it's later than, you know, a lot of the country. And so we go in and we'll plant our food plots and all that good stuff. Usually late September. That's also around the time we can use feeders here during hunting season. So we'll go in and we've got our strategic areas where we run feeders. Here in Alabama, you got a lot of like pine plantation kind of places. So, you know, you may have a long road and there's really no good food source in there, but it makes a great spot for a feeder location. And so we'll set those spots up, and basically we try to stay out of pretty much everywhere. So we don't, I'm not saying we don't get off in the bottoms and disturb and do stuff, but we really kind of hang to our stand location so we're not disturbing those animals.
Yeah.
And it's probably like Texas, but you know, the deer in Alabama, especially once you get bucks that have reached 3.5, 4.5, they're so spooky and so temperamental, and they just won't allow you to pressure them much at all before they change their patterns. So we'll set those cell cameras as long as we have the cell service. We'll put them on feeder locations. We'll put them on the food plot locations, and we're going to monitor those areas. So we know they're living off the fields, out in the woods, out in the bottoms. We kind of stay out of those, kind of treat them as sanctuaries, and we'll monitor where they're feeding. Now, if we know a good travel corridor, something like that, we'll obviously utilize that. But that's kind of that's pretty much our early season. And what that's allowing us to do is it's allowing us to see, what bucks are out there. You always hear guys building their hit list or so. And we do that. We want to see, like, okay, because we may only have on that 550 acres, there may only be 1 to 2 that are legitimate shooters. And we want to recognize that deer, see it, let the other members know, hey guys, here he is. Like, look at these 6 other beautiful 8 points that are 3.5 years old or 2.5. It's like, these are the ones that we really want to not shoot, So, so we utilize those cameras to help the hunters on our place kind of be strategic in what they're doing, and also to monitor does. We work with the state program. It's a free program. It's called the Deer Management Assistance Program. So we have a state biologist. He gives us a number of does we need to harvest. So, because we're working towards goals, we have to shoot so many does. So we need to know those doe hotspots where we can go in and harvest does and things like that as well. So that's the early season. We're really heavy on the food. And here now, like I said, we have such a late rut here. So, we have a long period that's kind of that, pre-rut period that we're hunting. But once we start getting into, the pre-rut, when the bucks are starting to really make those rub and scrape lines, I will start looking for that activity. And, it may be on an old road bed or something like that. And I may choose one morning after hunting to slip back towards the camp another way, and just to really kind of monitor, hey, I wonder what these deer are doing through here. And when we find those good, really solid rub and scrape lines, I will then throw cameras up on those once we start getting in that heavy pre-rut. And I want to see if I can start patterning a buck, see what he's doing. How is he moving through that property? How is he accessing other areas? Because that's when we really do start to see those bucks cover that territory, going and scent checking feeders and food plots. Those bucks, we may not see them at the feeder, out in the food plot in daylight, but they may skirt downwind, and those rubs and scrape lines kind of tip us off to how they may be moving through there. So that's another way that we'll utilize the cell cams. And if we do target a buck in season and he's really living in an area, that's the other way that the cell cam really helps us, is we can set that in close to his core area. And we can monitor that deer, whether he's going to a food source or wherever he happens to be going. If we can really hone in on one and he's living there, that's where we'll put a cell cam as well, just because we don't have to keep going to that camera and laying down scent and worry about bumping that deer off of there before, we're able to maybe harvest that deer.
Yeah, absolutely.
So those are kind of as the season transitions. But I guess maybe one thing I skipped is from the early season into, November and stuff, it's still into our archery season. Also, when those native acorns and persimmons and things like that start dropping, I'll really be looking for those in areas where I can look and not disturb the deer. And if I see a lot of activity on one of those native food sources, that's another place that I'm going to throw up a cell cam, because I can see when those deer are coming in. Maybe they get a pattern going and they're starting to come in there in the mornings or the evenings. That cell camera is going to tell me that. And then the next time I go in there, it could be to hunt, and I'm not disturbing those deer.
Do you really say acorns and not acorns?
Man, I say it every way.
You're right on that transition line, huh?
I've grown up saying acorns, but man, yeah, I've been made fun of for it before.
Oh no, it's okay. I mean, you're saying it the way it's spelled. It's just I thought regionally where you're at, you'd say acorns. It was just
I hear acorn more than anything. I don't know why I've latched on to the other way.
That's all. It's all right, man.
Some people just like to speak correctly,
Right.
It's okay, like I'm the same
other
way.
people are cool.
I I say acorn sometimes too, and sometimes I say acorn. You know, it's just kind of depends on who I'm around.
But when I'm putting out, yellow gold, I call it kern too. So yeah,
that's a Midwest thing. That is definitely a Drew Brothers thing.
That's right. So I mean, you kind of covered the basics there for pre-rut and rut and stuff, but late season, I guess. Would y'all get a late season, like, after the rut and everything's over? Do you have a open hunting season, or does it just run right to the end of hunting season when you're still hunting rut bucks?
So here in Alabama, it always ran till the end of January, which we still had rutting activity going on. So there used to not be a late season, but in the last few years, the season has been pushed to February 10th now. And we have noticed where we hunt, we get about a 2-week period, maybe just that 10-day period, where all of a sudden those bucks that have been rutting, and this is when we typically see a lot of new bucks move into our place that we haven't seen all year, because we've still got those feeders running. By that time, the food plots have been hit really hard. You're still in that winter time, so they're not growing as much as they were earlier in the season. And those feeders, they start drawing in bucks like crazy. And these bucks are run down. They're tired looking. I mean, they look like they've been, or haggard. Some of them got eyes, that are pussed up from fighting. Oh. And those deer, that last 10 days, February can actually be pretty special. And so in your sense of like late season, we've only got about a 10-day, 14-day period where they really do kind of act like a late season deer.
And so there you just kind of moving cameras back to food sources and just kind of monitoring to see whenever a new buck shows up. Do y'all?
Absolutely.
Do you, how you talked about, y'all are pretty management intensive in identifying what's shooters and what's not. What do you do with a new buck like that?
Well, first of all, does he meet the criteria? Is he a 4.5-year-old animal? And we're looking at the body. We do look. It's hard to not look at antlers, but
it's hard to not. That's right.
We try not to let that be the driving force. We try to really look. And they're going to be run down at that point. Like, for example, if you kill a buck in like December here before the rut, that deer may be 185 to 200 pounds of mature deer. We rarely see deer that are getting up well above 200. That's just not what we see typically here. But if you shoot that mature buck, say in late January, that deer is weighing, tops 160. Ooh. So, I mean, they really do lose 20, 30 pounds of body weight very easily by the late season. So it's just a matter of, is that buck what does he appear mature? If he is, then, we have killed some nice bucks in February doing that, because they will get on an absolute pattern on those feeders where they're coming in there morning and evening in the daylight just because they are so hungry.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you this. Do you guys have do you guys struggle, I guess, culturally in the deer hunting world with everybody gets so hyped up about mid-October for the next few weeks and what's going to happen, in the next essentially month and a half, but just essentially getting very excited about November. Is that something that there where you're at, you just don't see guys really getting too excited until the end of the year?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's always been and with the advent of social media, now it's all in your face, all your buddies across the country, Yeah. We every year, it's funny. I gotta go through 2 months early of watching guys just whack big old bucks across the country. And
does it take away?
They're just ghosts. They don't even come out till dark at that point.
Yeah,
it is. But yes, that once it gets once you get past New Year's, that's when you start seeing that good pre-rut activity where bucks are on their feet and they're you start seeing some good bucks going down here in Alabama. And then, of course, once you get into mid and late January, I mean, they really start dropping then.
Does it take away from your hype and your experience when, like, everybody's already had their party 2 months ahead of you?
You know, not really, because I've grown up hunting here, so I'm just so used to it. You know, there's just no point in getting excited when the rest of the country's rut is going on. Other than it's really neat to see those big bucks going down across the country. But yeah, you just have to wait, because you know, the deer, at that point, you know, we're still and I'll do this for you, KC. We're still hunting acorn trees.
There we go.
But yeah, we're still on those food sources, and you know, our rifle season is the Saturday before Thanksgiving. So, you know, even at that time, the November and December, those deer, they're just keying in on food. We're hunting them going to food, on food, things like that. So it's not really till late December, the first of the year, where you can start jumping on those rubs and scrapes and things like that.
Man, that's cool though, just because I don't know I know Tyler's talking about, you know, asking if it takes away from, and I'm glad that it doesn't. But it is neat for us. Like, we don't have a hunting season in January, right? But we just see, you know, our friends in the South, like y'all, that are just down there still getting it and hunting deer. And it's almost cool how the social media age has allowed us to just enjoy a longer season, not of our personal hunts, but just seeing buddies still get to do stuff, you know. It's neat.
It's very cool. It is. I really enjoy it because, you know, most of my buddies that I talk to that hunt the Midwest or, you know, different areas of the country, you know, they're always like, I just can't believe your deer are just now rut. Like, it's always fun talking with those guys, because they're just shaking their head like, I just can't believe that. You know, but you know, to piggyback on that, I've got a good buddy that he lives down in South Florida. Their deer season opened 2 weeks ago down there, and their deer are in rut right now.
Yeah, that's South wild.
Florida. And that just blows my mind, because it's 95 degrees and they're chasing does.
Mosquito fest. Is what that is.
It's just nuts.
Yeah, whitetail are crazy, man. You know, we've talked a lot about kind of like a seasonal type hunt, you know, where you have a property that you can go to quite a bit and kind of work your way through and hunt it throughout. But something that's kind of getting common these days, and something that we participate in a lot, are these little hunting trips that people do for whitetail. You know, I kind of grew up doing this for elk somewhat. Like you'd go out and go on an elk hunting trip, you know, and you'd have, you know, X amount of time to go out and try to kill an elk. Well, you know, people are doing that more and more for whitetail these days, just because, kind of like what we were talking about still, the social media age has kind of enlightened a lot of people on other opportunities out there. So, you know, for the guy, like say we're fixing to go to Nebraska for early season, you know, September 1 opener, which is probably not really what I'm trying to ask about, but that's just kind of the scenario at least. But for like a guy who is going to go on a 5 or 6 day whitetail hunting trip, is there a place for a cell camera in his, you know, repertoire there going out on a short trip like that? Like, is there a reason to deploy a camera in that scenario?
I think absolutely there is, even more so than a traditional trail camera, because again, you have that, you can set that camera. So, you know, say you travel with 3 or 4 cell cameras and you get there. I mean, chances are you're probably going to have to put some boots on the ground to kind of, you know, find out where you want to go. Or maybe you guys have scouted it so thoroughly prior to that, and you've got those 3 or 4 spots. You can put those cameras up, and as long as you've got the cell coverage, you can then monitor that while you're hunting through that week. And you never know what stand's going to be hot. You know, maybe there's a hot food source, especially early season like that, or maybe it's a water source or something. And you've put that cell cam there, and now you don't have to go into that area anymore. So you went in there once, you placed it, and now you can monitor that. And that's a huge advantage, again, because each day you're getting that intel what's going on at these other spots, because before when you did stuff like that, you were sitting in the stand and not seeing anything. You're like, man, I bet that other spot's doing really good.
Yep.
But, you now have the ability to know if they're coming through those. And I think absolutely that's where a cell cam shines, even in those short windows where you're hunting a place like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That makes good sense, man. We should have asked this earlier, but what's your best way to determine, if you've never been to a place, if you're going to get decent cell coverage there?
Well, so like you can go to MoultrieMobile.com, and we have the cellular maps on there.
Mm-hmm.
For Verizon and AT&T,
cool.
Those are the two cellular services that we use. And you can go and look at those maps and just see, if you don't have anyone in the area that I mean, it's always better, like, if you kind of had a little inside intel, like, hey, if you had a buddy that was in the area, do you get good cell coverage? Is it Verizon or AT&T? Which one's working good? But you can access those cellular maps on the MoultrieMobile.com.
That's cool. Yeah, that's good to know, man. Tyler and I both have Verizon, and we just decided to do Verizon cams because if we have like in the past, we knew if we had cell coverage on our own phones, then we could probably have coverage on the cameras. So it was kind of like the way to just always know. What's it take signal wise to be able to actually have a camera that works pretty good? Like some places we go, we have 1X, and it's like, well, you can make a call, but is that going to ping a satellite for a camera?
Right. So I've noticed, and I'm like you guys, I run Verizon as well. That's just around here, out in the country and the sticks. That's just you just get better coverage with Verizon.
Yeah, for sure.
But I've got places where, on my cell phone, and I've got an iPhone, it's hard for me to make a call out. And maybe it even is dependent on the day. Like, is it a nice, clear day? Maybe I can on that day, but on an overcast day, there's no way I'm getting one out. I've actually, at our place, over time, have been able to run cell cams in new areas where I couldn't make a call. So they actually work pretty good in that sense, as far as, like, maybe I can't get a call out, but I'm able, with that, uploading once or twice a day, I'm able to get images out of that spot. And we've got one place in particular, it's a bottom spot, and we've never been able to run a cell cam there. And last year, I can't get a phone call out of there, but I was able to run a cell cam, and we monitored that spot every day, and because it would send us the images. So it's kind of one of those trial and error situations. Give it a go, set it up, see how it does, see if it, I've got another spot that we've tried to run the cell cams. It'll run for about 2 days, but inevitably it's just not enough signal, and it eventually kind of bogs it down, and we'll stop getting images. And, I tried that spot about 3 different times. I'd go out there, I'd set it back up again. And, just after the third time, it's like, all right, this is pointless. It's going to send 1 or 2 days, and then I know it's going to go down. So,
but what's handy is it still sits there and functions as a regular trail camera if it's not getting signal, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
So you can pull that SD card and still see what was on it. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Well, I could ask you 100,000 questions, man. It's fun to talk about this stuff. It's cool. I mean, I'm not really a gear nut, but I like gadgets. You know what I mean? And the cell camera stuff is it's pretty cool once you kind of get your grasp on it and you kind of understand how it works, and you're not, tricking the deer too much or anything, but you're just using another tool in your arsenal, and it's pretty handy. So if people are interested or want to find out more about, cell cameras in general or Moultrie Mobile or whatever, where should we send them?
Well, if they want to just kind of like learn some more about them, I would suggest they go to MoultrieMobile.com. We've got blogs on there that specifically talk about different aspects of cell cams and utilizing them. We've got a lot of information there. Got some videos on there to help explain it. And, I highly recommend to anyone that's not running the system but is interested, is download the free app, Moultrie Mobile app, download it to your smartphone and use that demo app. And you can you'll be able to utilize it just as if you were paying a monthly subscription. And again, we have cameras out in the woods where it's deer and turkey and everything like that. So you can use all those filters. You can use the activity charting. It'll just allow them to see how the app works. And then once a guy uses it, that's when he can really say, oh man, I really see how I could utilize this on my hunting property. So I would highly recommend to anyone interested, just check out that demo app. It's really cool. And that will really start turning the gears on how you can use the system.
Yeah, man, for sure. That's what I did as soon as we started thinking about this stuff. I got on that thing, and it was pretty handy. And it's also kind of cool just to creep on other people's deer. That's
right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, awesome, Mark. Well, it's been awesome having you on, man. Of course, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. You're a fun guy to talk to, and man, I'm telling you, I'm ready to get some hard-horn deer on camera because. We were talking about earlier, but everybody's antsy, including us, man. It's getting closer for us than you, so sorry about that.
No,
but you'll be hunting them whenever we're just fat on turkey and dressing, so it'll be.
But I can't wait to start seeing your guys' success, and I wish the both of you all the best this season.
Well, thanks Mark. Same back to you, brother.
Yep.
I went through that whole podcast without calling a cell phone camera. Did you notice that?
Yes, you did.
I love to call them cell phone cameras.
So talented, man.
Yeah, but man, I'm serious. I have enjoyed this, and I was kind of wondering whenever Mark was like, "Hey, y'all should run some of these cell cameras." Back, in the summer or whenever it was, or I guess it's the spring. And I was like, man, I don't know if I'm going to like it, but I really, really do. Because kind of like what he was saying, I got through that hump of wanting the pictures like right away, or whatever. And now it's just like every morning when I'm taking care of my business, I get on my phone and see what's on the feed there. So it's pretty sweet. And I'm excited to kind of mess around with using them out of state when we go on these hunts. Because I kind of am, we were talking a little bit earlier about like the plan for Nebraska and some of these other states we're going, and I'm kind of trying to calculate camera drops into like that first day plan or whatever, Yeah.
And I think like for those who are thinking about it, like I think that one thing we didn't mention was like when you go out of state and you drop cell cameras, like it may or may not affect, or you may or may not want it to affect the way you hunt, right? That's fine. But you still have the opportunity to like have that camera or that data for next year.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like the historical data value is pretty high, I think, that you have that you wouldn't have if you didn't hang cameras. Obviously, you don't have to be cell cameras.
This is real cliche, but it is another set of eyes. And I think about it in this sense, not just the historical data, but just the deer knowledge aspect of it. Like going to some of these states like South Dakota, Nebraska, places that are quite a bit different than what I grew up with for sure, and then even places I've hunted. It's just interesting to learn more about what deer do.
Oh, don't worry. And don't worry. You're not even close to what I did in Illinois on the Map Scout Challenge. Biggest buck ever killed by a deer.
That's right.
He said no.
But for real though, like, I just kind of have this concept of like, well, the deer head to the woods in the early morning, and they head to the fields in the afternoon, and that's not really the case everywhere, and it's good to be able to kind of learn that stuff. I mean, I can definitely see a world where like we have a cell camera out in Nebraska, we see a deer do something. It's not the deer we're actually going to go target, but a mile from there, we take what we learned about what that deer was doing and kill a different deer because of what we learned. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure.
And that's like something you cannot obtain from a regular trail camera in the moment.
Well, that's what we struggled with, man. Like for a long time, it's like you and I hunted together a bunch, right? And the last 2 years we've done a lot of self-filming because because nobody really cares about cinematic video, and B, because like you don't just double. In my opinion, you don't just double like your information by having two guys in different locations. It's a little bit exponential. Like there's a little bit more than double of what information you're learning usually, because there's going to be days that you really don't learn anything because you didn't see any deer. Well, your other guy is learning something that day, right? So you're getting something when you would have gotten nothing. So that's why we started splitting up more than anything, is we go out of state and we're like, man, I feel like we could kill deer better because there's 3 properties that we feel like could be good in this area, but we can only see one if we hunt together.
Yeah.
And we can only see it from one location, So
yeah.
if you can't see the whole property, then you're toast.
One of the big things you have to keep in mind, though, heading out of state and dropping cameras, is that you have to pick them up.
Yeah,
that's
for sure.
And the way we always work is that we kind of wait to shoot deer till the last day. I don't know, even if it's a big one. I don't know how it always goes that way, but it's the way it goes to like the last day is like super hectic. So I would say, just as a tip, unless you got a buddy that lives in the area or something, don't drop one 3 miles back, because there's a good chance that gets left in Timbuktu whenever you head home, So that's probably would be my tip for, on those shorter trip hunts or whatever.
You know what? We left a couple of cameras on some Map Scout Challenge locations that we really need to get picked up.
We do.
And I don't know who's going to do it.
Yeah.
We mentioned it earlier, but we've got a pretty good buck, and actually a couple of pretty good bucks in some of those cameras. And then we've got one camera that's not a cell camera because it's in the mountains.
Yeah.
And we didn't have service for it. So
that's a good time to say it. If you live in Ann Arbor, Michigan, shoot us a message.
Hit us up.
Yeah, and we might do some talking. But yeah, that one that's not a cell camera in Pennsylvania.
I know. I'm stoked. We need to get it picked up.
Yeah, that's the other fun thing about running regular cameras is there's like the huge payoff of like, check this trail camera card.
Yeah.
But then like you just realize the camera strap just flopped in front of it for the whole time and you don't get anything.
Dude, how many times?
Oh,
Texas Public has taught us so much.
I should have learned it a lot sooner than I did. I probably have told the story on the podcast, and I won't make it too long, but the first trail camera we ever owned had 35 millimeter film in it, and I was so stoked. I put it on a feeder in South Texas, and it took all the pictures the first day of just the strap flopping.
It would have been all the pictures of does anyway.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
24 exposures of does.
Man, they have come so far, and here we are operating them from an app on our phone, and it is so sweet.
Crazy. You could never have dreamed it up.
I know,
back then,
man.
dude.
It's wild. Guys, if you haven't yet, we really appreciate reviews on the podcast. Actually, we haven't talked about that in a while. If you enjoy what we do, you think you have fun with us on air, please go leave us a review. It helps us out a ton. And be sure you check out our YouTube channel and socials and all that business, because guess what? Things are about to get wild. We're about to be actually posting videos and pictures of new deer that we encounter. How cool would that be?
New ones, dude.
New ones. I'm
live
so
ones,
stoked.
Live and dead ones.
I think we calculated the other day, and we're going to shoot 1,700 deer this year. So between the two of us, so we're stoked about it. I hope y'all are stoked about it, because this is the dog days. It's like so close but so far away for hunting, but you know what? It's fun to have this anticipation.
Yeah,
and that's part of what makes it good whenever hunting season is here. Is like, if you couldn't anticipate it and then all of a sudden you're just thrown into it, it'd almost be frantic. But with all this anticipation, it just makes it just so sweet whenever deer season's here.
Yeah.
So
you also get a chance to plan.
I like the planning part.
Me
for
too,
sure.
man.
Especially
Me too.
map scouting stuff. I like that stuff for
Oh,
sure.
yeah.
Oh yeah. So anyways, guys, get your stuff out, get it polished up, get your bows out, get you some Vector arrows just flying down range, just tuned up, and remember, this is your element.
Live in it.
Hey guys, turkey season is in full swing right now, and if you are planning on getting after it, make sure to pick up some Meat Eater Phelps turkey calls to stuff into the old turkey vest or into your fanny pack right now. I carry a few different things. I like to use mouth calls, and I like to use pot calls. Mouth calls or diaphragms, I like them because it gives you hand-free calling, meaning when you're working a bird up close, you can have your gun on your knee, finger on the trigger, ready to roll, and still be making turkey sounds. I like pot calls. I just like pot calls. I enjoy calling with a pot call. Whatever direction you go, including a box call, which I don't personally use too much, but they're fun and great, and I started out with them. Yanni, on the other hand, one of my main turkey hunting buddies, he loves box calls. And what's funny is I'll now and then look to him and give him the look that means get out your box call and find us a turkey. So it's not that I don't like them. I just have Yanni use his. Then I don't have to carry it. Go to Phelps Game Calls. Get calls that are made in the USA and get calls that'll get them close. Find yours at phelpsgamecalls.com today.